back to this week's episode, everybody. Please enjoy part 1 of my interview with Aimee Simons, the Chief Operating Officer of Sarah's Warriors Foundation. Please check them out at sarahswarriors.com, as well as looking them up on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Again, this is part 1. Please come back next week for part 2. Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for sticking with me through all these episodes as I continue to detail the journey of a family diagnosis of brain cancer with my daughter, JC, who was diagnosed in January of 2020. Through this entire journey, or shit show as my wife would call it, what I have noticed is that the silver lining comes out of this, which is that I've been able to meet incredible families, incredible organizations, and incredible warriors, and hear amazing stories. And so I'd like to be able to showcase those as much as I can, both on this type of media as well as other social media. The difference being, here we can say whatever the hell we want and we're not going to be censored. So today my guest is Aimee from Sarah's Warriors, and somebody that we met through TikTok, that's a love-hate relationship on that app, but it's created amazing friendships. So I want to introduce Aimee. The floor is yours.
What would you like to talk about?
Oh, goodness. Wow. Anything. You can tell us. So first tell us about, why you're part of this community. Nobody wakes up at any point in life and says, we want to be part of the childhood cancer community. It just seems like a fun gang. Let's party, right? So what is your story, your shit show journey, why you're here?
Well, buckle your seatbelt because it's a good one. When Sarah, back in 2017, we lost our home to Hurricane Harvey, and that's kind of where we started. So we moved into the house we're in now, and as we were getting settled and going through things, Sarah was 4 at the time. One day, we noticed she was sick, and she got sicker and sicker. She wouldn't do anything. I mean, you're talking a 4-year-old child who's already pretty small. She lost about 15 pounds in a few weeks, bruising, sleeping under all the time. She was admitted, we took her to a PD. They said, oh, it's just growing pains, she'll outgrow it. She's 4. And they actually found out and did some testing, and they diagnosed her with Lyme disease. And she went through treatment for that. And they said she should be good now. Like, there should be nothing wrong with her. But she wasn't. And we just watched as our child, essentially what appeared to be slipping away in front of us. She was sent for some workup at Texas Children's Hospital. And we were at the rheumatology office because they thought maybe it was like a long lingering arthritis from the Lyme disease. She also had some titer levels that tested positive for what could be lupus. And I remember the day I'm sitting there with Sarah alone, and the rheumatologist looked at me and said, I can't do any further workup on her. She needs to go to oncology right now. And I still remember that moment. You just feel like silence, just silence. And so you're trying to be strong for your child who's scared. I mean, she hadn't really been exposed to doctors much at that point, and then making phone calls. I remember calling Brian and him just breaking down completely while he was at work, and my mom, and just the sobs from her on the phone. I'll never get that out of my head. So she was 4 in November. She had bone marrow biopsies, and they decided that it looked like it was lymphoma, but they wanted to watch and wait, that it was slow growing. Fast forward to COVID. Sarah was very high risk she had lung issues, for anything that COVID could give her. So Brian, because he is in law enforcement, he isolated, Fauci's recommendation, 6 feet, stay home, stay safe. He moved out for like 9 months. And I was a single mom here, essentially, with 4 kids, one that was sick, and we did everything, they suggested. She was still getting, at that time, her lung infusions at the Children's Hospital. And Eli got sick one day, our littlest, and we took him to urgent care. They didn't do COVID tests because there just wasn't. It's November of 2020. There wasn't anything readily accessible at that point. And they said, oh, it's strep. It's strep. He's fine. The strep popped positive. Well, 48 hours later, Sarah got sick. Sicker than we had ever seen Sarah. And we took her to the pediatrician's office. And we couldn't keep her awake. Like, she was almost unconscious. And they said, her pediatrician said, hey, you need to get her to Texas Children's ER quickly. You can probably get her there faster than we could ever arrange any kind of transport with this pandemic right now. Get her now and go. If something happens on the way, call over and dial 911. So we did. We just loaded her in the car and drove faster than we've ever drove in our life. By the time I got there, I couldn't wake her up. They rushed her immediately back into the trauma bay. And I watched as a code blue was called. And they said, you need to call your husband and tell him she's not going to make it. And that was the hardest phone call I have ever, holding that phone up to her ear so he could, I don't even know what he said. It's between him and her. And they saved her. They got her back. And she was moved to the PICU. By the time we got to the PICU, they came back and said, by the way, she's COVID positive. And so was Sarah. It's scary. She's got horrible lung issues. She's got adrenal insufficiency, just things with Sarah. Or like Sarah does in her fashion. She made it. She survived. She got MISC, the complication from it after. And then almost exactly a year later, she has a natural killer cell immunodeficiency, which they play a pivotal role in cancer. She doesn't have any of them, and the ones that she does have, they're not functioning and they don't work right. They were monitoring her labs during these infusions every month, and November 2021, the labs fell apart. Like they just, something was really wrong, and we knew right away, and we called her oncologist, and he said, get her up here right now. And from that point on, 900 and some days later, here we are. She was diagnosed with B-cell lymphoma. We had almost 80 trips to Houston that year. It was exhausting. It was draining. She lost friends that year. It's nothing you want to deal with. It's nothing any parent wants to have to do until you're there. And it's a split second. It's a notification in my chart saying, here's a red flag. Something's really wrong. And you go from holding your own to everything changes in 1 second.
A lot of our stories kind of line up and mirror in that same fashion that, it's everything seems okay, even though we know something's wrong, but we don't think it's that wrong. We don't think ahead to that point that that's what we're going to see. And, we were in the same position to have something drastic happen and get that phone call that says, you need to get to the ER now. You need to get to Milwaukee Children's and you need to be here. They will know you're coming. They're going to sign you in. We're going to get you in. And then, you test here, a test there, and you get those words and you don't know how to react. I think a lot of people, would envision, us breaking down into a puddle of tears or on the floor or things like that. I think that the first feeling is shock.
Yep.
I know I did. I know my wife broke down to a point, not completely, and I stared off into the distance. I had no idea what to think, what to do. I didn't know what my role was supposed to be at that point. What do we do from here? And that's something that I don't think many people understand. It is a true family diagnosis. It is true that everybody is affected by this, but as parents, we have one job, and that's to protect our kids. And this is something we can't do that from.
Yeah, it's I think for me specifically, is we got the diagnosis after all of the testing. I mean, and it was so extensive. And when he said, this is what it is, we were afraid to even put it out there for a few days, a couple weeks, because I think it cemented the reality of, shit, like, here we are. You just don't want to even speak it into it's already there. You're already living it, but there's just something about making it public that it's like the race starts and you still want to just be on the sidelines.
Yeah. No, we were, for us, it was kind of the same situation. I put it out there, kind of looking for guidance or looking for help or comfort or whatever. I don't even know what it was at that moment, but so many of this community are thrown into this diagnosis with no support, we don't just know randomly people that are going through this. We feel like we're the only ones in this world having if you're not familiar with a diagnosis like this, you usually get about 10 to 15 people come into your room at one point. Every single doctor, whether it's PT, it's oncology, it's psychotherapy, it's your social worker, it's everybody's coming in, and you're overwhelmed already at that moment. And then when you get that diagnosis, when they sit down and tell you this is what it is, you are just, what do? You're floored at that point. You have now become what you hoped you never would by watching those commercials on TV. You never expected to be part of that community, and now you're here. What do? How do you move forward from this?
Yeah. In the beginning, it seemed like everything was going so slow, but now we look back, and we were talking last night. I was like, Ryan, man, we're almost 1,000 days into this, and it feels like some days, it's been that long, but most of the time, I still see little Sarah, and that just skin and bone, sick little girl covered in bruises. It's just weird. It's just an odd spot. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that it really truly proves how vulnerable we all really are, and especially our children, to the types of things that we just can't see. We can't fight what we can't see, and this is something that internally you're trying to understand. Why me? Why us? There's no understanding. That's our biggest fight in this community in general, is that there is no understanding as to why these things happen. They just happen because of dumb, shitty luck, and it's luck that we wish we didn't have, because it doesn't make any sense. But you're going through this, and you know what? There's a difference between, I think, the mothers and the fathers that are going through this. I think
Absolutely.
you see mostly, and I think that this is my vision of that. You see mostly women, moms, mothers on the front lines of this, being the advocates or being the comfort, the caregivers for the children. I don't think it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what we see at the most of. And also when it comes to facts, if you want more facts or more dates and times, you're going to have to ask my wife, because she'll knock those things out of the park and that stuff. I can remember the big things, and I can come back to it. But that kind of stuff, she'll know right ahead of time. She was the one there getting the doctors, taking her to the ERs and taking her to the urgent cares, trying to figure out what was wrong, and a lot of times being cast off and being told, there's nothing wrong. JC, they told us it was gastrointestinal for months, and here, take more X-Lax, and the child shouldn't have been able to walk straight. She was on so many laxatives. And it had nothing to do with what was going on at all. It was just, this is what it looks like. This is what we see. We're not willing to try any harder. Here we are. She asked me to come, like as the other parent, as the father, as the dad. I need you to come to these appointments with me, because they don't believe me. I need you there.
They don't. They don't. And it's just, in the waiting, you're wasting precious time where you could be treating it, and getting on top. And it's just, they just want you to think that it's not out there, and it's rare, and cancer doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care what you look like, where you're from, how old you are. It's Russian roulette. You just have to hope.
Yeah, and it's a lot more, I wish, about early detection with trying to figure out what's going on with these kids. I'm not into calling people out publicly unless they really deserve it. But, there was a video like just last week, you and another person on TikTok, about how they wish maybe they are questioning whether they should have done a certain test that revealed something serious, whether they should have done it because it could have caused something bad down the line.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you can absolutely do something to create early detection and catch these tumors and these growths and these cell mutations early, then these children may have that much better of an opportunity to survive them.
Yeah, and I wish that creator understood, like, hey, show me the clinical evidence that one CT increased this patient's risk of cancer throughout their life, because what you caught, had it turned into this malignancy, you would have caught it so early and given that child the best chance they had. But And that's the medical community as a whole. We don't want to do aggressive testing. We don't want to even run a basic CBC. It's just growing pains. They're just tired. Make them get more exercise, go to bed earlier, better diet, quit giving them snacks. Like, it's just, instead of truly listening to parents who are saying, hey, something is wrong here. We're with my child 24/7. This is not their normal thing. Please help us. And so often it's just, I don't know what it is. It's growing pains. It's arthritis, gastroenteritis. Just go home and take this. And you just want to bang your head against the wall like you're not listening. In Sarah's case, they've determined that, I guess it's kind of dark, but COVID suppressed her immune system so much, it caused that lymphoma to reveal itself. Like, it essentially, COVID saved her life, but at the same time, here we are, and she's 10, and she's lost, everything that truly means anything to her, and you have lifelong effects from treatment, and it's gut-wrenching to try to get her through this. So we started our nonprofit to just, pay it forward and give her something positive to focus on. It works some days, most days, not all the time, but.
Yeah, no, you talked about, like, we as parents, as caregivers, you understand what your child's baselines are. You understand your kids better than anything. There's no doctor on the planet that's going to walk in a room to a mother or a father and say, I know your child better than you do, because that's just not the case. Medically, on a chart, with dots and numbers, maybe you can understand them on a genetic level in that sense, but we know what our kids' baselines are. We can tell you when something's not right, when something is off, when their personality is wrong, when their eating habits are different, when things change, when they're not growing up the way that they should, or being just that kid. And we are, as parents, like I said, we are cast off in so many instances because we're the medical team. We're here as the doctors. You need to listen to us. We are numero uno. There is no other person that's going to tell you differently. It's what I say goes. That also hinders a lot of treatment plans and treatment options and protocols, because doctors are very territorial. And this is something that we've learned along the way. They're very territorial. If they find a treatment that works, although they'll share it, they definitely want the credit if it works, and they don't want the credit if it doesn't.
It's up 400%. Man, our stories. They just can't everybody just get along? Like, can't you just communicate and work this out together? Like, get a get along shirt. Well, get your robe. Like, both of you sit in it. Yeah.
Yeah, people. It's one of those things where we do more research, I think, as parents than a lot of the just steadfast doctors. This is what they do every single day. They're not bad people, but I think their judgment can be clouded by the fact that, like I've said a million times, they get to turn this off at the end of the day. They get to clock out and go home. Yep. Very few are on the phone with you and give you their personal cell phone number or a way to contact them outside of business hours. That's few and far between. You are living this 24/7, 365. That is why we also had to tell another certain person on social media that, yes, I consider myself, she considers herself, we all do. A lot of us consider ourselves smarter than doctors because we know the ins and outs of our kid. We know the ins and outs of their diagnosis, of our diagnosis. We know this. We know the cancer drugs, their side effects. We know the protocols. We know the community. We know everything outside of that doctor's office. Understand that what their expertise is right there in that room with you at that moment. When you leave, you're still living it. You're still on the clock 24/7. Our daughter passed away on July 3rd of 2021. We're still on the fucking clock. We didn't get to clock out from this. We're still living this every day, trying to get more and more people to listen, to understand why we're so fired up, why we're angry, why we're irritated with having to continually educate people on something that should be so nonpartisan. Our kids.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it because it's painful to look at. But, reality is 47 kids a day, I believe is just, it's not rare, and I was telling Brian, it's, every grant denial we get where it's, you know, your organization doesn't align with our giving policies, it just fires me up even more. Like, we're not going to stop just because she's in remission. These families are out there. You truly, in that early stage, you have no one. I mean, even your closest friends, they don't know what to say. They don't say anything at all. And at the time where you need someone the most, you are alone. And that is why, like, we want to help these families as much as we can. We need them to know you're not alone. No one fights alone. It's a club you don't want to be in, but we'll fight for you. It's
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so you said a word, and I want to make sure that everybody understands. So she's in remission, so she's okay, right? Everything's good. Everything's fine. We don't need to worry anymore.
you gotta go there, huh? Like, I wish people knew. Like, look at leukemia patients. They're in remission usually within the first 4 weeks, but that doesn't mean you're done. You get maintenance treatment, you get ongoing. It does, like doxorubicin that she got before her CAR T. Like, they have to watch her for 20 years. It can cause issues 20 years later. I mean, it's so mind blowing. Like, one medication can. Oh yeah, but you're not done. Remission doesn't mean done. It just means that the cells are suppressed enough that it's no longer like an active. Still gotta keep going. I, yep.
Yeah, that's a fun conversation to have, right? I mean, you have remission, you have NED, you have cancer free, you have all of these fun terms that people hear, ringing the bell, right? End of treatment, all of this stuff. And when that happens, everybody just assumes that, okay, well, they can take their foot off the gas, everything is good. You can just, move forward with life. There's no reason to worry anymore. It's all over. In reality, if you want to really look at it, I think at that point the fight is just getting started, because there's so much more that you have to worry about. Like you said, 20 years that they're going to watch because of one single drug. These side effects that come with these drugs, the big ones, right? Infertility, deafness. Secondary cancers. That's a huge one. You can get secondary cancers from the treatments of your cancer. That's amazing. Death, hair loss, cognitive delays. You don't grow right. It can affect your pituitary. Like, there's so much that can happen simply from the treatments, that I often say, and I think a lot of people would agree, that the side effects are often worse than the cancer itself. What they do to you to fix it often makes it a lot worse. And so when we try to get people to listen, to understand that there's 6 drugs that are approved. They may use over 50, over 100, 6 that are meant or tested in a way that they were created for kids and approved for kids. They're still using the other ones.
Well, and every kid is so different too. It's just to hear, how many, every time we're up there, there's a patient having a reaction to their chemo. They're moving them to the trauma bay to, Benadryl, and trying to stop the reaction because they're so aggressive on these little kids' bodies. They're not designed to get those meds. And to hear, like, we don't know what it's going to do. We're going to try this. Like, let's try it this month. Like, how about you do some research and just find something? It just want to.
You do not want to hear your doctor say, we're going to give this a try. We're just going to give it a shot. We have no idea if it's going to work or not. And the reality of the situation is, if they don't know if it's going to work, you almost want to walk away from it.
But you can't.
No.
No, you can't. And it's a nightmare every day.
They give us percentages of survival. With every type of cancer has a survival rate. It has a percentage out there, but there's 100% chance of we know exactly what's going to happen if we don't try something. So even if, some of these more aggressive cancers have a less than 5%, a less than 1% survival rate, they are terminal at diagnosis, but you still try because you never know. Something might happen. There are amazing and incredible and bright and brilliant researchers out there that are working on the next big thing, but don't get the opportunity to bring it forward. And I hope one day that that's different. I hope that those discoveries are able to come forward and be able to make a difference, especially with these kids, because, the big numbers, not a big number, but the 4% that we hear about that the government gives to us. Last year we were in DC, they told us was 8%, and they were excited. That still blows. 8% is garbage. It's not. It's nothing. We like to compare it to tickets to the Met Gala. You get 4 of them for what they give for the entire year for this stuff. What LeBron makes in a day is what they get for the entire year to take care of all kids. And when I mean all kids, I mean 80 million kids are getting use of $250 million. It's garbage. And we're trying to figure out why that is. Why is it that kids are so easy to use as a platform? Kids are so easy to invoke in every single speech that you make, and everything that you want to protect them, you want to save them. All of our politicians love kids so much, unless it directly affects them, and then they could give a shit.
Yeah, and it's not. We've learned it's not even just politicians anymore. Grants just out in the community. It's generally most people, and even friends will say, well, just we're tired of hearing about it. Like, we don't want to hear about it anymore. And it's really rare. You're just so deep in it that you're seeing everybody. But I've said all along, like, change your algorithm, see what's actually out there. And every day it's more and more families. It's not rare. And if local businesses won't care, why would our politicians either? And our kids don't vote. They don't buy things. They don't support the economy. They're dispensable to a lot of people. And it just makes my blood boil.
As it should, and it should. Everybody should feel the exact same way. There is almost there's little to no support when some communities will come together and they will stick with you, and they'll be there for you and back you. But a lot of small businesses or even big corporations, I think it's easy for them to turn around and walk the other way. Not because necessarily they don't care about kids, but I think it's because it's an easy situation to turn off if it doesn't affect you personally. And if you don't support it, you don't have to think about it. And so therefore, we get this same exact letters. And I was talking to Mike Pruitt from the Ryland Strong. He gets the same letters as well. Your mission doesn't align with our giving priorities, which, again, I'm still trying to figure out that equation, because I don't understand it. Like, I get if it's like I've said before, we have a defense company in Wisconsin. Okay, what does defense have to do with children? I don't know. What does DOD budgeting have to do with breast cancer? Okay, I don't know what the connection is, but kids are and don't cancel me for that. I support everybody. Just I'm trying to understand it all, but kids are at the core of everything that we do, every single thing that we do, whether it's building defense for the country, whether it's, building houses, or whether it is running a garden store. Your kids are at the core of it, because without them, there's nobody to take over those corporations as you age out. There's nobody to take over those businesses when you decide to retire or continue to make them better, or to be your employees. There's nobody there to do all of that. So if you just continue to say it's not a big deal because I'm told it's not a big deal, then you just have blinders onto the world. But the numbers are going up in the wrong direction in this community. Yeah. When JC was diagnosed, there was 43 kids a day. Now it's 47. The numbers are going up, but they like to tell you that there's an 80% cure rate now. I don't give a fuck, because there's 95% of that they're going to deal with these lifelong health issues because of the treatments. We need to fix the treatment issues and the awareness issues. You're trying to fix the survival rates. You're saving these kids, but are you really?
Yeah. And it just makes me so mad. Don't say Oh, it's 80% when brain tumors, DIPG, 100% fatal. Like, where's the funding for that? Where is hope for these families, to have the same outlook as a leukemia, lymphoma, parent? It's just not right. I think they get the least amount of the funding, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And it's so messed up and it's so skewed, and it just gets worse.
Yeah, the least amount of funding goes to brain tumors, CNS tumors, and that is the most deadly type of childhood cancer, which, again, the addition does not, the math doesn't math in those situations. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And, the reality is that the bulk of the money, you'll hear it from your government officials that it's coming from the government. And I've even heard it from some of the researchers. But I would beg to differ that the bulk of the funding for research comes from organizations outside that are receiving donations, that are doing this, that are creating these types of grants and opportunities for researchers to come together. The Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation, the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation, St. Baldrick's. I mean, all these organizations, they're carrying the load of donations. There was anonymous donors that somebody donated $90 million to the Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C. anonymously. The load is coming from the parents, from the advocates, from the organizations. It's not coming from the people that are supposed to be protecting us at all.
Parents should not have to have lemonade stands to help find cures for their kids, but look at like Alex's lemonade stand. It's June, they're doing their kickoff, and that's what's happening. Thousands of families are now holding their own lemonade stands to give back, to help save their kids and future kids. And does no one see a problem with this? Like, do you not care enough to reach out to your politicians, your leaders? A lemonade stand, people. This is not okay.
I don't get it. I think I thought, or maybe I was wrong, that kids were the one thing that were universally protected, universally nonpartisan. Everybody, there's no bias. Like kids, that's what we protect. Hell, they even protect kids in prison. Okay, they're like, you know what I mean? You don't mess with kids and then go to jail. That's just not, you know what I mean? That's so why is it that one place where nobody wants to go is the one place where they're maybe the most protected, when out here we should be taking care of them and continuing to give them the world, because they are our precious asset. My children are my greatest achievement. And I think a lot of parents, I hope all of them would agree that they are our greatest achievements. They are what are going to move forward and take care of us. They're going to take care of everybody else. They're going to be the next politicians or police officers or firefighters or judges or, whatever they have planned to do, doctors, nurses. They're going to be there. Maybe. If we don't give them a chance, they're not going to be. And that's why we make such a big stink about this and continue to try, because you need to hear these stories. You need to hear the bad stuff. And, I think I think myself, I think of all these families, we probably have in the chamber stories, images, videos that we have not shared, maybe not even with our spouses. Maybe it may be time to start releasing these to show people the true reality of what pediatric cancer is, because it's not a commercial. And I bring this up in every episode. I have no issue with that organization, with what they do research-wise. Marketing-wise, I think it's bullshit. I think that they need to show the reality. And I also said before that this is the first year that I've ever seen them talk about a story where a child passed. They've come back 2 years later and say that child passed away. It's always, you don't ever have to pay. Everybody's happy. Everything is taken care of. You're all smiling. Our child's happy when they get to go. That's a lie. They're not happy because they get to go there. They may have a favorite nurse that they've grown accustomed to, or child life specialist, or because the toy closet will be open. I promise you they're not happy about sticks and pokes and MRIs and CTs and propofol and all of this crap that they have to deal with when they go. So that the marketing behind it, I don't like and I don't agree with. And I think it needs to be more reality. They do it for the ASPCA. We see sad dogs out in the middle of the and chained up to things and all this kind of stuff. We see kids that are starving in certain third world countries that are skin and bones, and that's okay to show. But when it comes to cancer, we can only show the good side of it, because I don't know. We wouldn't donate if we showed the bad side. I don't know what the reasoning is, but that's bullshit.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I don't like it, but so let's switch gears here for a second. So I mentioned in the very beginning that moms and dads, husbands and wives, I think we handle things a little bit differently when diagnosis comes through or when treatments are happening, and things like that. So what would you say the biggest differences are between how you and Brian handled everything from then until now?
I'm going to speak for him because he's not here. Brian manages the home front, which I'm so thankful for. We have 3 other kids, and they all are processing through it in their own way. And I can tell you how many inpatient stays I've gotten calls of just trying to deal with things from afar, and it's overwhelming. I'm always the one there with her, which that's perfectly fine. I am a bit of a hothead, so when I get angry or frustrated, trust me that you're going to know about it for the most part. But Brian, he's quiet about it. He's very reserved. I think he feels that he needs to be, excuse me, the backbone, the one that isn't fazed by it, to just help hold his family up. So he works, and there's times we'll talk about it, but I don't really remember any true deep, like, emotional conversations about it, and that's cool. That's his way of dealing with it. Sorry, Brian, he'll break down every now and then, but it's just so different, which then at times, truthfully, can cause a little bit of conflict. Like, hey, are you not worried that this has happened, that we're back in the PICU, and then it turns into a fight? I mean, all couples fight, and it's hard. It's hard to keep your marriage strong and not let it tear you apart, because I'm different than he is, and then you got just the chaos around us and falling out of trees, and like it's challenging. I can say with 100% certainty, the last 3 years have been very hard. Not always in a bad way, but just it's a lot that you, going into marriage, didn't think you'd have to handle. You never, if you had asked me 18 years ago, like, hey, you're getting married soon, do you think you're going to have a kid with cancer? I would probably have laughed at you. Like, it doesn't happen. I used to be that parent, But here we are.
There is something else that comes up pretty frequently and that I talk about, is that there's another statistic within the pediatric cancer community, and you touched on it a little bit, and it's the 80-20 rule. And the 80 is not the best part of that rule. The 80 is actually the worst part, and it stands for 80% of couples or marriages will break apart because of a diagnosis like this. And I've had these conversations with my wife. We actually did an episode once about it. I've talked to other families about it. I don't think that we have the magic answer as to why it worked out. I don't think we have I think it's just being understanding and listening and realizing that you're both going through it. The whole family's going through it, and you also deal with it differently. I'm the same way. I deal with it differently than she does. I am the emotional person, and she is the stronger, one that doesn't break down. And if she does, it means she's having a really, really bad day, where, little things like watching my daughter graduate high school is hard for me, mainly because she's growing up, but also because I know that JC will never get to do that. And that is a hard thing for me. But 20% of couples survive. When you think about survival rates, you're thinking about the children surviving the cancer. They're going on to live lives of doing everything that they wanted to do, hopefully, and hopefully the side effects don't hold them back. But there's 20% of families that are still together, whether it's through the diagnosis, whether it's through the bell ringing, or through the unfortunate passing of your child. And it's a hard reality, because the stress level and what it can do to you mentally and physically going through this is an incredible amount that you just can't find ways to describe it. And so when people ask, and I've been asked, how did you guys come out on the other side? And to be honest with you, I don't know. I think that we just knew that this family was stronger than anything that you can throw at us, and we were going to stick it out no matter what. I mean, I had a preconceived idea my whole entire life. My parents divorced when I was 6. That was never happening to me. So I think that was a drive as well. But I think we just communicated the best we could. And yeah, we argued. Absolutely. We argued, we fought. You go through days, 48 hours plus, not sleeping. You're tired. You're exhausted. I don't understand exhaustion until you're doing things robotically and like a zombie and trying to figure out just life at, whatever time in the morning. And when some of these drugs, they also make your children not sleep, like ever. And that means you're not sleeping. And so there's a lot. So yeah, I don't know what the magic answer is, but I know that number, I wish there was a way that we could change that as well. And I also want to say that I want to normalize the fact that for men, for fathers, for dads, it's okay to be emotional. I know that I think it's in our DNA that we're supposed to hold the house together. We're supposed to carry the load, and we're not supposed to show emotions, and societal norms are telling, don't screw all that. Yeah. We have to be able to share with each other. I think that's another point, important point. We have to be able to be open and honest. And it's also cool to, if you let your guy friends, if they're having a bad day, man, be there for them. I know you're not supposed to. Bros aren't supposed to hug. We're not supposed to laugh and cry together. No, it's okay, man. It's cool. All right, just don't make it weird. But it's okay. We have to normalize this, because it is. I mean, right now it's June. It is Men's Mental Health Month as well, and we struggle with a lot, and we don't show it. And I think that's why it's such a big problem, is because society said you're not supposed to.
Oh yeah, you gotta be tough. There were, I can remember just a handful of times where Sarah was really sick, and I know the probability. I know how many close calls we've had every time she goes into shock. And I remember those conversations where he would pull me aside and just break down, and are we losing her? And same thing. I don't have a magic answer for this, Brian. I don't know, but let's keep communicating. Don't ever stop communicating. And that's, I think, very important to being in the 20% versus the 80, and it's straining. It's hard, and I thought when you grew up you would have all of the answers would be gifted to you in this book. Like, when I'm an adult, life is going to be great. No, it's a train wreck. Everything falls apart. He falls out of a tree, and you wish you had a magic answer as to what do we do now. You don't. You're just, and even the kids look at you to, hey, you have these answers for Sarah for anything else going on, and you just got to wing it and hope you don't blow things up in the process.
Yeah.
It's mentally just a challenge at times. And if I knew then what I know now, it's hard, and tempers flare. And I think the worst thing that's ever happened for us is that when we don't vocalize what's going on, and we just, keep it inside. And so, now we have a system where we had a friend who, we don't really talk to anymore. And they couldn't understand why I wasn't calling them with updates on Sarah on clinic days. And the policy is, I don't talk about it. I used to talk to Brian about it in the car on the way home. It's a 2-hour drive, and that turned out to be a little dangerous. So I don't talk about it unless it's like needs to be dealt with now, critical. I wait till we're in person so we can sit down in the office alone quietly and not do things through text or calls, because he is her dad and he needs to know first, not outsiders. And that was just, I don't know, something they never really understood.
Yeah, we're from diagnosis day or from the first admission in the hospital and things like that. I think the world expects you to update them minute by minute about what's going on. I know that I simply used Facebook, and I'd put an update out when I had time, and that was the end of it. And of course, I had about 170,000, Facebook messages and text messages, and I got back to them when JC was sleeping or if she was in an MRI or something like that, and then that was fine. But yeah, everybody expects that you need to be updating them on a daily basis, on a second by second, and no, nobody deserves anything except for the people that are in that room, that are there with her, and you get to those updates when you have an opportunity, when you have a chance, and if you even want to. Nobody else deserves to have minute by minute, play by play of what's going on unless you let them into that circle. And I've also mentioned that circle as well, is that if we let you into this circle, it's because we trust you and we feel like you can be a vital part of what we're doing, both in the fight and in outside in our organizations and stuff. We've let you in. Don't break that trust and don't screw that, because once you do, that's the end of it. There's no respect is earned, and so is trust. And if you break the trust, as far as I don't let people back in. Once that happens, I'm done. I move on.
Yeah.
Much like we have to purge a lot of people from our lives when a diagnosis like this comes on.